Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining. We might just wait one more minute just to allow a few more attendees to join us. So please stand by. We'll start in about 1 minute. Thank you. Well, good afternoon again. Welcome and thank you for joining us for the second of our cybersecurity fundamental series. Before we dive into the managed detection and response, which is the content of today, perhaps just some quick introductions. Luke, I might hand over to yourself for a quick introduction from you, please.
No worries. So my name's Luke Bignell. I'm with the Adlumin team, and I've been working a lot with the security engineers from the time that my company Enable acquired Adlumin, just to go through the platform, learn how to use it, and help other people get involved with it as well. Before that, I worked for an MSP for about 7 years as a security engineer, mostly specializing in endpoint defense, firewall, general security events. So definitely learned a lot through that way.
Yeah, at the coalface, definitely. Thank you, Luke. Now, for myself, I'm Lindsay Rhodes. I'm Head of Client Advisory Services at Huon IT. I've had the pleasure of working at Huon for almost 20 years now. So from technical roles through to solution architecting, account management, and I now lead and work with a wonderful team of passionate people who strive every day to make our clients' businesses more successful and secure. Now, lastly, before we do get started, if you have any questions throughout today, please do use the Q&A, which is up the top of the Teams window, to post your questions. And we will endeavour in the Q&A at the end of the session to answer as many as we can. But likewise, if we're unable to, we'll reach out after the webinar to assist further. All right, well, we will get started. So, unknowns are one of the biggest risks to business, I think we can all agree, and equally is an organization's ability to respond quickly. Now, the benefits of real-time and proactive service in any sense, but particularly in cybersecurity, means that rapid response is the outcome, and that is what we are focusing on in our content today. Managed detection and response is a service that goes beyond the traditional types of security monitoring, in that it not only is restricting or restricted to only alerting of a threat, but it extends its capability to automated or guided remediation of an event or an incident. Now, MDR, for short, we'll be using that term a bit today. MDR combines 24/7 monitoring, threat hunting, AI and analytics, real people with eyes on, through to playbooks to allow predefined and automated responses to events. And through this, things like alert fatigue, which is quite common in the cyberspace, where again, just a flood of things coming through, not knowing what's real and what isn't. This kind of area is negated, and when a real incident does occur, when there is actually a live threat to your business, the notification and engagement can be achieved rapidly, and you know that this is something that you need to focus on. This is something that is not a drill. So stepping back a little bit, why even consider an MDR service? Well, the simple answer is the alternative. I think business disruption, data loss, notifiable breaches, reputational damage, just to name a few. So when considering these sort of services, again, we've seen a lot of the return on investment is certainly a compelling decision factor in a lot of these, again, considering the alternative. Now, commercially, these kind of services in the past, as we may know, have been aligned more to large business or enterprise, and in many cases required a dedicated team, security operations center or a SOC team, as it's been called, be it in-house or outsourced, just to manage the workflow. So with new vendors and technologies, such as through Enable, these services are now accessible to small and medium business as well. And that is a great outcome for many of the clients that we work with. Now, Q&IT leveraging enables MDR platform. We overlay the management, the triage, and the support, along with reporting, to ensure that you are getting the most benefit from what an MDR service can provide. Now, a bit of a snapshot here, but again, I think a really key criteria when you're looking at these sort of security overlay services, these means of awareness, is electing a solution that has comprehensive vendor integrations. Indeed, this was a prime lens by which UNIT, coming into our partnership with Enable for MDR services, looked at, because there are solutions that were lacking in one area or another. And particularly with cyber, any area not known is a potential threat vector. While we will go into a bit more details shortly, and throughout the demonstration of the MDR platform, it is important to note that cyber protection is never 100% guaranteed. However, with exposure to endpoints, to infrastructure, network, cloud services, firewalls, and critically identity services that your organizations use, and then combining that with response and containment, and finally reporting and compliance, an MDR service should definitely be a consideration for any business. Now, in this next section here, Luke, I would like to hand over to yourself. Very much appreciate what we're going to do is take you through some more of the details and again, the back end of how these services work, and what the outcomes for your business will be. So thank you, Luke. I might hand over to you now, please.
No worries. So the three main components of this platform, first off is the SIEM side. That's the database of all the information coming through that's being constantly collated, analyzed for any patterns of behavior, and then passed on to two other components. The SOAR actions, which are the automated actions that kick into gear. So for the more common threats that come through, things like impossible travel, potentially malicious behavior, they will jump in straight away, perform an action like disable an account or isolate a device. That then will get passed on to our SOC team of security engineers who work with the UNIT engineers to go through and review any alerts that require a bit more of a personal touch, and also review the review the SOAR actions that take place. So if the account is disabled, the SOC engineer will go through, make sure that definitely is the right thing to do. And if there's any extra other areas that come on and review, and then pass on to the UNIT team, where they go through and do the final touches, make sure that whatever threat was there is removed, and then go ahead and remediate whatever SOAR action took place.
And just stepping in there as well, I think, when we talk about SOAR, we're talking about these playbooks. So we're talking about the means to have predefined responses to a particular type of alert or event. And this is something that our team works very strongly with clients when we're onboarding into MDR. Again, we have all heard the stories about security can get in the way, but at the same time, there are elements of risk where, unfortunately, in many cases, having an immediate lockout of a system or a user is actually the lesser of two evils compared to, once again, what the alternative could be.
Absolutely. All right, so I'm just going to step into how we actually start onboarding devices and your account information into this platform itself. All right then. So actually getting the agents on your devices is a very straightforward installer. It's very low key when it comes to resource usage. I know that other EDR platforms, which take a bit more of a intensive look at endpoint devices, quite resource intensive. You can almost feel the computer getting slower sometimes when they're analyzing something. These agents are much more low key. All they're doing is grabbing the data, encrypting it, and sending it to the platform for analysis there. They don't need to do the full-on investigation that normal EDR components do, because they're just trying to see what's happening on the device itself to pass on to the MDR platform for the actual analysis. And they'll actually combine the data for your kind of endpoint defense with what we have here, just to get a much bigger view of what's going on. So very lightweight, very easy to install, doesn't even require a reboot once you install it. So it's very straightforward for the Huron team just to get out there on there straight away. Now,
Thank you, Luke. And I'll step in as well, just very quickly. I think, again, everyone, this is a very key point of it. This platform with its amount of integrations and being able to pull from different things. Once again, EDR, or your endpoint protection that's running within your environment. Enable does support a multitude of the main providers of endpoint protection. And it's just another, it's another area of telemetry that's coming into the platform to give that holistic view.
absolutely. Speaking of that, so we have the Windows side, Mac, also a number of Linux distros as well. Complete side note that we also support several IBM series machines in case you have any of those lying around. Unlikely, but it's come across a few times. We can also ingest information from your firewall network devices using this particular platform here, a syslog collector, where you send all the log traffic there. It correlates it, and then very much like the agents were showing beforehand, we'll just pass it through to the MDR console. And then I'll take it from there. All right, as Lindsay was mentioning beforehand, we also have a number of integrations. So it's not just the endpoint devices, it's also a lot of the cloud platforms that yourself or your IT manage for you. I'll jump into all categories here. Probably the most important one is the Azure one. That will then go through and get all your normal user information. So all the activity coming through from when people are logging in, whereabouts they're logging in from. I was going through the logs with someone once beforehand where we're even seeing teams start meeting times. So it's quite intense what it can grab through. Pretty much if there's any Microsoft account activity at all, we can grab it here, log it, and then analyze it as part of a wider overall picture alongside your firewall, alongside your endpoint devices. So that way, when we start seeing alerts, and we start talking to the human IT team about what's going on, they have a much wider picture of what's going on. Also, as Lindsay was mentioned beforehand, the whole alert fatigue, because we helped narrow that down. That way, that all the human IT engineers are only focusing on actual legitimate threats coming through, not getting bogged down by simple user activity. All right, so Azure is probably the main one, but you can see here we have a number of other ones as well. So if there's one of these in your platforms, the human IT team can come through, get it set up, get it running, and get this integration passing information from that platform into the MDR platform itself as well. That's all good to go there. All right then. So that's all the data that comes through, starts collating into our SIEM side of the platform. And once we can analyze that, that's when we can start performing the SOAR actions. So it stands for Security Orchestration Automation Response. These are the ones that will go through, and if it detects something like, here we are, VPN client foreign activity compromise. So if there's a user, if it detects VPN activity coming in from an overseas country and it says, this behavior here is very odd, this user's never been here beforehand, it's on a device which they've never touched before, and they have failed entering the password 3 times, too many red flags, go ahead, disable, contact the human IT team. They can go to investigate, see what's going on, and then reach out to you if they see a potential threat happening there. Main reason is it's going to kill the threat before it becomes a major problem, and then pass it on to human IT to actually go through and see how it got there in the first place. Whether someone just kept using the same password for everything, including their free emails accounts, something like that, that got compromised, in which case they can track that down, get that sorted. And like Lindsay was saying beforehand, yeah, disabled accounts a bit of a pain, but you kill that threat now, it's not going to become a major issue 6 months down the track. So that's what a lot of the SOAR actions are there for, just to, whatever the issue is, kill it, contain it, make sure it can't spread any further, and then contact the IT team to make sure that they can go see what happened beforehand, clean it up, and really limit the chance of it happening again. So quite a few here. That takes care of the majority of issues you'd see. I quite like this one too, the darknet exposure. So this will grab all the information we have from your Azure environment and then run a regular scheduled check against any exposures in the darknet. If it does see an account there and it's what data's been there, it will go ahead and report that. If the password has been reset since then, so let's say there was an exposure back in 2018, it will log it and say that's a bit of history there, but not a major issue because the password's been reset during that time period. If it hasn't, as in it came last week, then this can go through and force the user to reset their password next time they log in. So just straightforward, automative, and then the human IT team, of course, can follow up, make sure that user has reset their password. And perhaps it might be an account that hasn't been touched in a while, in which case they can go ahead, see whether it still needs to exist or not. If it doesn't, disable it or delete it. If it does, then just check with your side to make sure that's something you do want to keep there.
I think this is a really good example, I think, of the name of this webinar, which is you don't know what you don't know. And I think dark web and darknet has been one of those ones where, again, we've had options to do point in time checks and then take actions. But again, the real value of these sort of real time and ongoing recurring features of services like this within MDR is another massive value add.
Absolutely. So I'm going to pop to the dashboard now. This is where we can really start to see what we found in your environment. So once this pops open here, so this page here gives us a nice view of any particular areas of note we see within your system here. Now, this is just our demo server, so that's why the score's so awful. Definitely not any live, actual, proper environment.
I hope it's not one of our clients, yes. Correct.
No, definitely not.
Yeah.
I bring it up here. That's just our demo section here. So you can see here, of course, the aim is for a nice, excellent score, 75 or above, but ours is quite low. I get a breakdown, I can see why, and it really lists all the major areas that I need to focus on. So like Lindsay was saying beforehand, it's the things which may not be immediate if you're just doing your normal day-to-day tasks or setting things up, but we can really go down and see we have lots of stale passwords, at-risk systems. We have stale accounts, not too bad, which is good. But this sort of gives a human IT team insight into how your environment's going. Like I said, stale passwords or at-risk shares, not an immediate threat, but they then have the chance to go through, see what's there, and fix it up, make sure it's smooth before it becomes a major issue further down the track. Same with compliance insights, gives us a nice view of what's going on here, group policy violations, reversible encryptions, things which not many people check for. Even people I've been I'll go through helping someone get their trial set up. We meet again a few weeks later, and they start seeing things in their environments, even though they're an IT team themselves, that they didn't realize that were there. I think one time there was one engineer who accidentally set a public folder on his own laptop, set it to global allowance, so anyone could actually log in if they knew his IP, and grab the details there. And he just did that once as a bit of a test 3 years ago, completely forgot about it until this popped up here, and his IT manager had a good chat to him about it. That's all good fun there, but things that even IT engineers do to themselves, they don't really expect to pop up later on.
Sure.
All right then. So now this one here just lists all the sort of alerts we can get. So we can see, high severity malicious activity detected. So information we're getting through from Windows Defender integration, actions performing to isolate our devices through potential ransomware attacks. And we can see here, ransomware activity detected, Office 365 event detected. So all the sorts of stuff, which it looks a bit of a slog to go through, but that's kind of what the human IT team is for. It does get a bit technical sometimes, going through all the different minutiae of what's happening, but they can jump in, take a look, see what kind of threat it does present, whether it's a bit of a minimal one, or whether it's something they need to jump in and take care of. So the MDR team will go through, make sure that any immediate threat is killed off, and then pass it on to human IT to make sure that they can do the final assessment, clean it up, and get it sorted. So this is all the sort of stuff that will come through, get picked up, get taken care of. And the reaction time is quite quick at this. If it's not the SOAR action jumping in, jumping on it immediately, getting it sorted, then it's the SOC team that's job 24/7 to come in and get that resolved. And then they'll pass it on to Lindsay's team just to get completely cleared up. All right then. So of course, one thing I mentioned more than once is the SIEM side of it, how we're getting all this information pumping through. The side effect of that is it also gives us a lot of insight into the environment beyond just this. So if I go to here, go down to the reporting section here, and we'll take a look at some of the administrative reports we can get.
And that was, I think, something that many organizations, Luke, would be wanting to see out of these sort of platforms, I suppose, is going to be from a reporting side, what sort of compliance insights it may give, again, any proactive recommendations for protections. Again, that sort of reporting side is often a very key criteria.
Absolutely. And that's it. So if we go down to something like, so if we go down, one of my favorite ones would be auto reporting 365 MFA coverage report. So that's something which kind of you and IT team can check on a periodic basis just to make sure that any accounts made on your side do have the correct MFA in place. Not just a yes or no question, but what MFA is enabled, that is enabled correctly, and that is going through properly as well. And that's just simple as building this, go build report there, and then they can just go through, see the results, analyze them, make sure that everything's smooth. Now there's there we are there, a few other ones that may be of use too. So if I scroll down a bit more here, outside office hours activity report. Once again, could be completely innocent, someone just working a bit harder on the weekend, but of course also could be signs of someone outside the organization just jumping in when no one thinks their account's being used.
Is anyone watching? Yeah.
Well, that's it. So I can specify the normal working hours here. I'll pick the time zone. I'll just pop down to Sydney time. Where is it? There. Perfect. Yep, all accounts and date range will just be last quarter. Go build that report there. That will go through, spend a bit of time generating. Excellent. Now I actually generate that report beforehand. And so I've got the results here as well. And it will show something like this. So it's account name, where they're logging in from, what type their login is, whether it's successful or not, multiple failed logins outside office hours. Not a very good sign. Well, a good sign isn't they're failing, but a bit of a alarm or alert to know that someone's actually making the attempt. Data access, things like time source. So like reading through this piece by piece would be a bit of a slog, but that's where your IT team comes in, just to go through, analyze it their own way, make sure that's all lining up with what they expect. If they start seeing odd source IPs like this, so from a public IP address instead of a local one, then they think, well, that's a bit peculiar. Let's see what's happening here. Let's see what's going on. A few other ones may be useful as well. Let me just pop this away over here. If I go through here and go, here we are. So I think it's this one here. There's a decent selection of reports. Sometimes I get a bit lost going through them all. Actually, now let's pop in this one here. So auditing report. So account activity report there. And so I can go here. So actually, no, we'll go for a group one.
And I think that's again, with all these reports here, everyone. Again, there's a lot of detail, right? And again, where we would position an important consideration in something like an MDR solution is that there is triage involved, there is management involved, there is collation involved, and again, that's really where we've elected a best of breed solution, which is enable MDR through Lumen. And then it's layering that over the top of it to make sure that you're getting a service delivered with information and insights rather than just, an argument could be, well, we'll stick all of our systems and point them all at some log server running under the stairs somewhere. But when, if that's your approach, that's great. It may tick a box to say, hey, we're collecting logs across all of our systems, but if there's no means to really gain insight out of it or awareness or proactive alerting out of it, then it's not really worth the paper it's printed on in that sense. So I think a snapshot you can see certainly from the reporting here is the depth of different types of information that have been thought about by Enable that we can then leverage to give you those insights, or if you have a certain compliance request that comes along, chances are we'll be able to build a report to give you that information. So yeah, really key piece.
That's it. I mean, even this one here, user audit report, just going through, sees who has which access to which area, and if that aligns with that, what you're doing, and when they're actually utilizing it as well. So sort of thing, yeah, it's all reporting admin stuff, but as it was saying, it actually having a nice controlled report that you can just make requests for. We can grab the details for you, send it to you. Like I said, much more straightforward than paying someone to say, well, we had that log server running for 3 years now. Can you go through and find specified information at this date? Yeah. So some level of organization there, which is good as well. So, I mean, that's just the main part of it there. We have a number of extra tools involved for just to help really enhance what's going on. One I do like is the perimeter defense one. So this just does a consistent scheduled external scan of the environment. So we pop in a public IP address of your own organizations, name it there, and then this will do a scheduled scan of any open ports, any dodgy SSL certificates, or any potential vulnerabilities we find on your network, and then put down a report here. So certificates and vulnerabilities, of course, will go to the actual dashboard for alerting pages, which means we'll be in contact with the Human IT team, letting them know what's going on, but also just a bit of a report on what ports have been opened over a time period as well. Vulnerability monitoring, one good example I saw not too long ago was I was helping someone out with the trial. We were going through, we're doing a bit of catch up, and they found out that actually they had a SQL server that was exposed on their IP address. Apparently the engineer's predecessor had set it up, had linked it, so if they try to access the SQL port on a public IP, it will just go tunnel straight into their SQL server. Now, it was an open port, so it would also be picked up here, but because it was actually going straight to an SQL server where the database was, it says that's just more than an open port. It's actually a potential venue of attack if their database is publicly exposed. So that came through as a high-level alert. Saying, yeah, you need to get this sorted. But the recommendation is, completely lock off the action or isolate it more or put it in a sort of a semi-on public, semi-off public role. So if you do want to publicly expose, then the safeguards are in place. Yeah. And that's something we can set up, get going, and then the Human IT team can just keep an eye on the results, make sure that nothing alarming pops up that needs to be taken care of. Once again, same with the darknet exposure.
And that's where I think we are leaning into the fact that many of these services can be run as a point in time, as a standalone, traditionally. And in many of your businesses, you probably have perhaps schedules around when to do certain, dark web checks or again, from the vulnerability scanning perspective, what this service is really bringing in is that, recurring and or real-time awareness of those. So when the system changes, there's an alert that's generated to tell you that something has now gone from compliance to non-compliance or from good to bad. Yeah.
That's it. As I mentioned beforehand, darknet exposure. So I think we're pretty safe on this one, but normally I'll give you a bit of a history about when exposures occurred, what accounts were involved, and if it's still relevant or not for you. Here's some extra tools that the Human IT team will be using as well. A particular good one here would be the threat intel. As we're talking about beforehand, with potential outside office hours activity, we can see what IP people are being logged into, and then we can use this database here, which is a combined database of the CISA, so the American Security Department, hybrid analysis, and VirusTotal. It can search through this database when the Human IT team jump in, just to see if the IPs they're picking up have any known malicious activity associated with them. If they do, excellent, well, not excellent, but red flag, they can jump in and get that sorted. If it's smooth or if it's a bit of a gray area, then they can just follow up with you, see what's going on, or just do a bit of their own checks to make sure that, yes, it's completely safe. Same with any dodgy files they see picked up on the system as well. And if they're a bit suspicious, they can go through, double check, make sure that there are not any known threats coming through. A few of the other tools I like as well, Endpoint Hunt. This is when we can actually pick out a user account or an endpoint device and then do quite a thorough analysis of what's happening on them. So we can select different areas, access events, USB events, device data. And if you're saying, look, we want to double check this user device, see if anything odd's happened, the Human IT team can jump in, grab this information here, and then start going through, seeing if anything odd is happening on their side. If you come through a bit of a concern, they can go through and take a look at the logs, find out what's happening, and see if anything peculiar were happening on the device. If not an immediate threat, then suspicious when you have the right context for it. All right then. They're the main tools that you'll probably find interesting. There's a number of other ones here which can, of course, get quite technical, including the research function, which is just a pretty much straight log search result. I'm fine with this sort of stuff because I kind of grew up learning on firewalls and routers and switches. So just doing straight string queries into the entire database is perfectly fine for me. But it means that they can do things like if they find something odd happening, like an IP address or an event on one of your endpoint devices, they can then do a search that carries across all the information you're gathering. not just the endpoint device, but also the Azure side, any cloud integrations you have, any firewall integrations that you have. Really get that full picture just from that single IP address or source IP address or anything like that, or even just a username. Go through and see if it's popping up anywhere else. And that's kind of the one advantage we have over the standard endpoint defense. That's still required, no doubt about that. It does have that. Well, standard endpoint defense can do the deep analysis of the device itself, but MDR does a more full picture. It can take that information from the endpoint defense, plus combine that with firewall activity, cloud activity, endpoint activity, and get that much larger picture of what's going on with the SIEM sides correlating together, the SOAR actions jumping in when it sees threats, and the SOC team working with the Human IT team just to make sure any threats that do occur are blocked down, sorted out, and made sure that there's no long-term ramifications.
Exactly right. And I suppose just a quick question. I know we've got Q&A coming up, but certainly when you've got sort of the SOAR playbook sort of section that I can staring me in the face over there on the left, I would be keen perhaps for your thoughts on again coming back to event fatigue as well as false positive. But when we take these kind of really common actions that come out of a automated response, so like account lockouts or device isolations, things like that. I mean, how is Enable MDR able to, or how does it deal with those sort of false positives? Like, how does that really work?
Well, normally when we advise people onboarding new clients, we say, look, give it 30 days to learn what the normal activity is. So we say turn off the SOAR actions, let the information come through, and then it can learn what the baseline behavior is. I was talking to someone earlier today, and they're saying they had some team in the Philippines, and for the first 2 or 3 days, it was coming up with alerts saying you have kind of overseas user activity, but by the end of the week, it was completely fine with it. It says, all right, we know what the activity is. That's normal for that user. We don't need to start sending alerts through when someone logged in for the Philippines because that's a normal activity. Same as someone does a bit of travel. I think I was talking to someone where they do a bit of traveling around New Zealand, and they said, yeah, it was very loud for the first week or so, but by week 2, and particularly by the end of the month, it had learned that was a normal activity. Would still pick up alerts if it's coming from, one side of the North Island when they just left from the south. It would say sort of a medium level alert. This is a little bit unusual, but not really worth disabling the account for, just so you know this is happening. The sort of thing where the actual IT team can double check, make sure that, yes, that user's over there. But they'll give a nice description in the report itself, sending to someone like you in IT. Here's all the data we have on the scenario here. And then the IT team can go through, make sure that it all lines up correctly, and that it is normal activity. So yeah, it's normal. We monitor the normal behavior, learn what the baseline activity is, and that really starts minimizing what the false positives are. Occasionally, there's a bit of fine tuning when it comes to more obscure events, but like in the end, once we know what's happening, then we can jump in and get that sorted. And there's also the options too, if there is a false positive, of the Human IT team just jumping in themselves and getting it sorted themselves. So if Alavik was disabled by mistake because they jumped on a VPN at lunchtime to watch Brazilian football and forgot to turn it off when they finished, we can go through and say, well, we know that's a false positive. Let's just go back. Here we are, enable the account, click apply, and that will pop through straight away.
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah, perfect. Well, thank you so much, Luke, for the run through of the back end of the magic and how it all works.
No worries.
I might quickly just jump back in and share a little bit more information. Hopefully this works. Live animals when you're jumping back and forward, but I think we're okay. I trust you can see the next slide there, hopefully. So what I'd like to quickly do before we get to Q&A is have a bit of a run through of some real world examples and where we've seen some value come. Child Fund is a good example of this. So they are a not-for-profit and they provide a really critical service to children living in poverty around the world. And unfortunately, despite this noble goal, they, as with all of us, are not immune to cyber threats or attacks. So some additional challenges that I thought was key to sort of bring up that they faced was the amount of offices they have, and it spans all over Asia Pacific and beyond. So you had that distributed workforce, and in that, a really wide variety of technical and cyber awareness, which is always a challenge. And so what they were sourcing was really a solution to give visibility, and particularly to that sort of unusual behavior, patterns, things that otherwise would never be noticed, it's not on the radar, but who could, and they understood the risk of that happening. So, with UNIT's sort of managed MDR service and leveraging Enable MDR, what we're able to do is provide this, but also in a cost-effective manner. Again, being not-for-profit, they really want to put that money and investment, back into the service that they give to the community. So I guess two examples that came out of this, and this is a case study that is available on our website as well, for reference and for more detail. But just giving some real-world examples. So again, across all these offices, there was a user that was in, I think, their Papua New Guinea office, and the credential was compromised. And this event was detected and reported. And this immediately established, as per the playbooks, to lock the machine from the network, require password resets. Again, there was a predetermined action that we'd agreed during the implementation of the platform. Now, given that they also had adopted some other really good solutions around remote management and deployment, so things like Microsoft Intune, Autopilot, other platforms. But again, this really was something that was able to be remedied very quickly, and really to mitigate any future risk. Not only was it the immediate response from MDR, but it was then part of that process for them that no risk is going to be taken, that user's laptop, desktop endpoint was wiped, re-imaged, reset up, and within a very short period of time, again, all of those action items had been taken and the risk was negated. As you can imagine, without having that exposure to it, it may have been picked up in a week, 2 weeks, who knows? Again, it depends on what sort of coverage and eyes on that the business would have had otherwise. And I think another one of these ones is, really when we talk about from a traveling perspective as well, and you mentioned very early on, impossible travelers, things like that. But, a second event within this particular organization, again, was one of the C-levels. So again, a target within their business, and was traveling, and then hence unusual logins were reported. And basically that is then something that is now a process for their business, where notification of travel is given to the business so that it's a known travel. And hence, it's highlighting when someone's popped up in, Egypt or Europe or something as a login location. It still does, if it's not been pre-notified, stem a triage/investigation of, is this a real login or not? So there's many more examples that I could go through, but I know we've got limited time. Again, I think across lots of the clients that we've worked with on these sort of solutions, where each of them has provided a benefit that they wouldn't have had otherwise. Now, I would like to get to Q&A, and I've seen a few things popping into the Q&A panel there. So we'll do our best in the next 6 minutes to answer as many as we can. But once again, I think, any ones that we aren't able to, we'll certainly come back to you on as well. So I'm just going to quickly bring up that panel now, if I may. And Luke, again, I welcome your sort of inputs on this as well. Really, really simple one. I think I know the answer, but I'll test you as well. What does SOAR stand for?
Stands for Security, Orchestration, Automation, and Response.
Excellent. That was my answer too.
Excellent. Good to hear.
But again, in that, it is really that response. It's that sort of being able to have a automation component to a response process that you have. All right. Again, going back to the old SIEM and the old sort of more security monitoring platforms, where we were receiving the alerts, but there was not then, a process that could be put in place to respond to that in any automated fashion. So that's where that one comes from. Now, this is an interesting one as well. So do small businesses need these kind of solutions? And again, really, really good question. I think the first answer is probably the simplest, which is yes, everyone is a target. we've had small businesses targeted just as much as some of the larger clients that we work with. Secondly, when you think about it from a perspective of notifiable breach, Privacy Act changes, bringing down those thresholds, yes, this is becoming more and more a fundamental part of you protecting your business, irrespective of the size. And again, there's obviously, as you get too small, there could be a higher investment than perhaps the business is comfortable with, perhaps. But once again, I go back to the fact of commercially over the course of the last 10 years, certainly we've seen this entry point into these kind of services come down now, where small and medium business can definitely adopt and reap the benefits of it. Luke, I don't know if you have any other thoughts to that, but there's my sort of snapshot.
Probably the one thing I hear about the most is that people do like the fact that you can have a whole actual SOC team involved, even for a small business. It's actually feasible to do it. You don't need to be a 500 user plus to justify having a SOC team monitor your activities. Even if you're just half a dozen people working in a shop, then with 3 or 4 devices, then this still can be deployed and utilized.
Yep. Excellent. Now, another question we've got here as well relates to licensing. So I might be able to answer, Luke, you might be more placed, but it does come into what licensing on Azure or on Entra ID within 365 do you need to get the full functionality out of this software?
So for that, we aren't really too fussed on the license type. The way we grab the logs, or the way we handle the information, is we grab the logs directly, which doesn't really need a large license for, and then we do the analysis ourselves. So yes, you do have to pay for a higher license if you want something like geolocation data from Azure directly, but because we handle that ourselves, we don't really need a more expensive license type. Whether it's business standard, business premium, E3, E5, we can still get the same data that we need to give the same sort of analysis across all license types. So we aren't too fussed about it.
No, excellent. Yeah, I think that really does sort of stem into the fact of, many, well, all environments are slightly different in 99% of cases. So again, I sort of come back to the amount of different supported applications, platforms, integrations that are there. And the fact that, again, when we talk about Microsoft, for example, which many clients may be in within Microsoft Cloud or 365, that again, it's layering over the top and taking some of the telemetry from all of these different disparate systems and bringing it into a single point so it can be analyzed and actioned accordingly. Now I can see we've only got a couple minutes left. I might be able to squeeze one more question in. And the next one up here, what is the compatibility across devices? I think we may have sort of already covered that a little bit. Again, I think that you look at the and happy to come back to you on the full breakdown of all there, but I think well covered across obviously all the different types of endpoints. Again, from telemetry coming in across all the main vendors when it comes to firewalls and endpoint protection and SaaS platforms. I assume, Luke, that there's always scope within Enable to be bringing more integrations in, but there's obviously always a pipeline there.
I think the latest ones we've been bringing in is more ticketing integration, which may not be too applicable for everyone here, but it does show that we are bringing more in on the integration side. What you're saying before, Lindsay, about things like firewall and routers and switches, we are quite vendor neutral with that. As long as they can give us syslogs to ingest, then we're happy with that. We can take it from there. Plus, of course, Windows is always going to be widely supported, and Mac devices, Linux devices as well.
Yeah, perfect.
And IBM machines, if you have one of those.
Good luck finding them, but yeah, I'm sure they're still around. Well, we're coming towards the end of today. Again, just wanted to, on behalf of Human IT and Enable, greatly thank you and appreciate your time. As a next step, we'd be pleased to work with you, see how we might be able to learn more about how managed detection and response, and see how it could benefit your business. Importantly, I think, the value comes through really ensuring that you're getting comprehensive integration of these platforms to get the best out of them, along with then the ongoing management triage and support that comes with it. As I said, it's where you've got telemetry going off into the dark hole, into a black hole. It's not really, as I said, worth its while to do it that way. So again, I think from our side, it's really about having that to collate what is technical reporting into consumable insights is probably the biggest takeaway that I would say on that side. Also do encourage you to have a look at some of our other on-demand content as well on the website, including prior and, depending when you watch it, future cybersecurity fundamental series webinars we'll be doing as well. But with that, just like to thank you all very much for your time. Look forward to your inquiries. Hopefully we can help you to secure your business further, and have a great day.
Cheers. Bye.
So much.